Commissioners Michelle Bowers.
Present.
Kathleen Carlson.
Present.
Amanda Haas. Absent. Andrew Mercy.
Present.
Timothy Wiley.
Present.
Vice Chair Russell Bartlett. Absent. Chair April Bartlett. We have a quorum.
Public business from the floor. If an individual is unable to stay through the entire meeting due to extenuating circumstances, a total of 10 minutes is provided at this time during which input may be given regarding agenda items. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. Any person who would like to address the Architectural and Design Commission on any agendized item is requested to complete a speaker card for the recording secretary and identify the agenda item you would like to discuss. Each person will be given an opportunity to address the Architectural and Design Commission at the time such item is discussed by the Architectural and Design Commission. Speaker cards available at the entrance of the council chambers. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. Our first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the special meeting of August 1st, 2013. I move we approve the minutes from the meeting of August 1st, 2013. Do we have a second?
I second that.
Let's vote. All in favor? Five to zero.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay. Second agenda item is the new business. Update on traffic calming, bicycle, and pedestrian improvements and safe routes to school master plan. Is staff ready to present their information?
Yes, and there will be 3 of us who will give you various pieces of this. We're really happy to take the opportunity to kind of bring the commission up to date on where we're at with a number of initiatives in the city. We have some things that we're doing that are now implementing parts of the master plan of trails and bikeways. We have other things that are actually in process that will further implement that overall plan. And we're also working on a citywide Safe Routes to School master plan that is actually going to take several years to complete, but we are engaging all of our local public schools in that effort. We began that and have actually done some of the work already, and just kind of want to let you know what's happening with that because aspects of that also tie into the implementation of the master plan of trails and bikeways. So with your indulgence, we'll give you kind of a rundown on some of the things that we're doing. And the first thing that we really want to address is some of our safe routes to school planning that we're doing at the present time. And this is really a presentation that we also gave several weeks ago to the Lancaster School District Board so that they were aware of some of the things that we were going to be undertaking. And I think that it's important that we let you know as city commissioners what's happening because you're the ones who get questions from people out in the community. Safe Routes to School programs have 5 basic elements. They are the 5 E's. If you hang around this long enough, you learn what those are. They're education, encouragement, enforcement, engineering, and evaluation. For purposes of this evening's presentation, we're going to focus more on engineering, which are actually improvements that you can use as part of a Safe Routes to School plan. And things that we are already doing and have underway within our city. You try to create safe routes with engineering to improve children's safety and encourage them to do more bicycling and walking. As you will probably recall, one of the major concerns that our residents listed when we were going through the master plan of trails and bikeways was they just didn't feel safe in the sense of traffic speeds and crossing wide streets when they were thinking about whether or not this was a community they wanted to walk and bike in. So walkways and crossings, when it comes to school children, absolutely necessary. You have to have these kinds of things in place so that, from a safety standpoint, they can walk. When the weather's bad, they still have a hard surface that they can walk on and they're not tromping through the mud. And part of what we do in master plan work for Safe Routes to School is to actually go out and look around each of the schools and see what the condition of these kinds of things are in that vicinity. Bicycle lanes. Of course, bicycle lanes, very important to help encourage children to ride their bikes, as well as benefits to the community as a whole from additional bicycling. We look to use things that can reduce the crossing distance on streets. You've already seen some of those things in our city where we've used some bulb outs or other things, such as on 15th Street West near Kaiser, even over here on Jackman, where even small improvements can make a difference in the crossing distance for someone who needs to get across the street. And of course, probably the biggest example of that in our city so far is the work that we did on the downtown boulevard, where it's now very easy to cross the street as opposed to what it was several years ago. Curb extensions, certainly something that we're looking at doing and in fact are already installing in some locations. They further help slow the traffic speed and also reduce the crossing distance. Road diets. We've done some of these already. Michelle will give you some additional information on other ones that we're looking to pursue in the near future. And road diets, as you will recall, is really kind of resizing the road so that you still have adequate traffic flow, but you slow that traffic down and you make it easier for bicyclists and safer for pedestrians to also use it. Crossing treatments, areas of refuge for pedestrians so that they only have to cross half a street at a time can also be a part of that. And the big thing is really to look at slowing down traffic, especially where you have school children that are crossing roads. The fact of the matter is that the higher the speed of traffic, the longer it takes someone as a driver to stop a vehicle. You can see at 40 miles an hour, the stopping speed is really the length of a football field for somebody to stop. Whereas at 20 miles an hour, they can stop in a third of that distance. The other thing is if you are a pedestrian that's involved in a collision with a vehicle, the fact is that if you're hit at 40 miles an hour, you are very likely to die. You are very unlikely to survive that. If you get hit at 20 miles an hour, you will still get injured, but you're very likely to survive that kind of a collision. And we do believe, and this is something that we learned a great deal of during the master plan of Trails and Bikeways effort, that correct design of streets really invites correct use. That if you design the street to really control the speed, that's the speed that you'll get most drivers to drive. And once again, our downtown street is a good example of that. Narrowing lanes reduces speeds. It doesn't have to be physical. It can be lines. We've had some success in that in some areas already. Turn radiuses, how wide the corners are. The larger turn radiuses make it easier for drivers to make rapid right turns. And you really want to try to get a situation where they have to go more slowly. It allows them to see pedestrians in time. It gives people that are crossing actually a closer distance because a smaller radius will actually go further out into the intersection and allow them a shorter crossing time. We're also taking a look at other communities and what they've done around their schools to try to incorporate these strategies. There are a number of things you can do, and not every solution is the right solution in all cases. This is an elementary school in Bend, Oregon. One of the things that we found very interesting about this is that in some ways it's similar to what we have on Lancaster Boulevard west of our downtown. This street that runs along the north side is actually a street that ties about a half mile later into their downtown area. And because they have a river, we have a freeway that creates crossing issues. They have a river that only has certain crossings. So traffic does tend to concentrate on certain of these streets. But as you can see in this particular area, we'll go to the ground level and show you, but they've installed a roundabout at one location to help reduce traffic speeds and make crossing easier. They've actually done some other bulb out treatments along another street along there that also helps their pedestrian school children to have an easier crossing time and slows their traffic. This is their roundabout at that location. And this is the street that's behind the school, and you can see some of the bulb outs and the curb extensions that have been done along here, once again to help create a safer environment for not only children who are walking, but if you slow traffic, it's also safer for drivers, parents who are picking up and dropping off. And one of the things we found in some of our walk audits is that, I'm sorry to say, parents who drop off and pick up kids are some of the most unsafe things going on around schools. So, and I can tell you that the school staff will verify that. Here are some improvements that we have already underway, and you may have seen some of these happening near Miller School, which is at 22nd Street West and Avenue K4. This is actually an improvement that we're looking for curb extensions on Avenue K8, which is about a quarter mile south of there. That work is already underway. This one is at the intersection of K4 and 20th Street West. This is 20th right here and north. Which way? To the left on this one? Yep, to the left. And what we're going to be doing here is providing, once again, some extension of the curbs as well as the installation of a traffic signal so that you don't have children having to cross an uncontrolled intersection. And we feel that that's going to really bring some additional benefit to this school. We were able to tell some of the school staff and parents this when we did the walk audit at Miller, and they were really ecstatically. Everything we did after that was just great. They loved all this fact that this was already going on. We have done some improvements around Joshua School. This was a case where I said walkways and sidewalks and paths are important. There were none in portions of that area. We've now managed to install those sidewalks and those ramps so that there is an easier opportunity for children to walk in those areas. And that's my part of this presentation, kind of giving you an idea of the kinds of things we're thinking about on Safe Routes to School. Michelle is going to give you an update on some of the improvements that we're already looking at doing around some of our schools. And then after that, Elma Watson, who's the project manager for the Safe Routes to School effort, will give you kind of a brief summary of what we've done so far and the things we're looking at doing in the future on that.
Thank you very much.
For your time.
Thank you, Brian. Good evening, Commissioners. So Brian has discussed some of the tools that we're looking at implementing around schools to help us improve the safety, but they can also be applied at other locations throughout the city, not necessarily near schools, but really everywhere, and that's really what we're looking to do. One of the tools he briefly mentioned were roundabouts, and so this first part of my presentation, I'm going to just kind of talk about the benefits of roundabouts and why we're considering them at 3 locations throughout the city, 2 of which are close to schools, the other on the way to school, but probably more like a mile or so away. But we really think they're a safer choice for intersections, and let me explain why. So first let me start by answering the question, what is a roundabout? A roundabout is a circular intersection, and there are some key features to the design of a roundabout. The first of which is a yield control on entry. And what that means is that priority is given to those people who are actually in the roundabout, and those approaching the roundabout actually yield to those drivers within the roundabout. The second feature is slow and consistent speeds. So the design of a roundabout is such that you really can't go any faster than 20 to 25 miles an hour. Another key feature are opportunities for landscaping. The central island, as well as the splitter islands and parkways that surround the roundabout, they provide some opportunity for us to enhance the intersection and make them more attractive. Pedestrian access crossings occur away from the intersection, not too far, but back from it. You don't cross across the circle. you cross at the crosswalks. And the crossings are much shorter than at a traditional intersection. So you usually cross one leg at a time. That means you're only crossing one direction of traffic at a time. So you only need to look left, and then you get to the splitter island, and then you would look right and continue on. So much shorter crossing lengths and less exposure to traffic. And then the last feature is the direction of the circulation, which is always counterclockwise. And some people are concerned that they might not know, how to maneuver through a roundabout. But the splitter island and the markings on the pavement and signs will help people to understand what direction to go and how to make those movements. This slide speaks to the severity of collisions that we have, both at traditional intersections as well as, roundabouts. Typically, we have rear end, side swipes, broadside collisions, and head-on collisions. The most severe of which are the head-on and broadside or angular type collisions. And here in the city of Lancaster, we have high speeds. So when those types of accidents occur, they really happen at high energy, high impact, and typically result in more severe injuries. But with a roundabout, it pretty much eliminates the potential for head-on or right-angle collisions. And you typically see more of the less severe type of collisions, which are the rear ends and side swipes. And again, because they happen at 20 to 25 miles an hour, they are definitely less severe. This slide shows the number of conflict points that you might have at a traditional intersection. There's 32 conflict points versus 8 conflict points in a roundabout. So it's reduced by 75%. Again, the traditional intersection typically has higher speeds, higher angle, and higher energy collisions, whereas in a roundabout, they usually happen at lower speeds, low angle, and low energy. Because of the design of a roundabout, there's typically 90% less fatalities that occur at a roundabout intersection than traditional intersection, and a 76% reduction in injury-related collisions, and 35% overall reduction in collisions. Similarly, for pedestrians, the number of conflict points are greatly reduced by 50%. Again, as I mentioned before, the crossing distances are much shorter. You're only looking at one lane of traffic at a time instead of multiple lanes. And also at traditional intersections, drivers have to make a lot of decisions. Whether to turn left, they're looking for oncoming traffic, or they're looking up at the signal, or to their right or left to make those turning movements. And they're not necessarily looking for pedestrians who could be in the sidewalk. So with roundabouts, again, less time that the pedestrian is exposed to that traffic and for shorter distances. Okay, so now I'd like to show you some of the locations we have planned for roundabouts. The first is at Avenue L and Challenger Way. And this intersection, we considered roundabouts because in the last 10 years we've had 4 fatal collisions at this intersection. That's pretty significant, and in fact it's the intersection that has had the highest fatalities for the city. So we applied for a grant through the Highway Safety Improvement Program and were awarded grant money to install a roundabout. So we're hoping to reduce those collisions I mentioned before, which are the most severe, the broadsides, the right angle collisions that occur because people are running the traffic signal. So again, with the roundabout at this location, we're hoping to slow that traffic down as it approaches the intersection, gets through the intersection, and eliminate those types of collisions altogether. This is a picture of the intersection today. So there's 4 lanes in the west leg and 4 lanes in the northerly leg, 2 in the easterly leg, and I think there's 3 in that southerly leg. When we do the roundabout, we're actually going to reduce the number of lanes approaching the intersection to 1 in each direction, 1 in each direction. It's probably hard to see, but this is kind of a concept of what the roundabout will look like. So you can see the angles that are approaching the intersection, and that's meant to slow the traffic down so that it can't go can't go any faster than that 25 miles an hour. The next location, let me back up for a minute. Just so you know, this intersection is actually almost designed. It's 90% complete, and we hope to advertise it for construction the beginning of next year and start construction in spring. So the second roundabout we're looking at is at 15th Street East and Lancaster Boulevard, and this is near Discovery Elementary School. Let me go to the next thing. Currently, there are 4 lanes in each direction, and the intersection is actually pretty wide, 78 feet. And a school-age pedestrian typically walks at a speed of 3.5 feet per second, which means the pedestrians are exposed to traffic for 22 seconds, and 5 lanes of traffic just in one direction. So a lot of time that there's the potential for a collision with a pedestrian. Currently, it's an always stop, and there's been a history of failure to stop at this intersection, which is the primary cause of collisions. And again, those are going to happen at those right angle, high energy, high impact type of collisions. The sheriffs have issued over 40 tickets so far this year for failure to stop at the intersection, so it's been a compliance issue. So that is the primary purpose we started looking at a roundabout at this intersection. We want to improve the safety here and improve the crossing for the school children as well. This is the concept of what the roundabout could look like at that intersection. As you can see, we're going to give this street a road diet, so there will only be 2 lanes at each approach. And school kids will now only cross 15 feet at a time, instead of 78 feet. And that means they're only exposed to traffic for 4 seconds at a time, as opposed to that 22 seconds that I mentioned earlier. In addition, we're proposing to install rapid flashing beacons at the crossings. So they're actually pedestrian activated, so you approach the intersection, you'll push a button, and the lights will flash back and forth kind of like a wigwag, really bringing the attention to the motorist who's approaching the intersection that they need to yield to a pedestrian who's there. I mentioned the road diet, so we'll be dieting the road from 17th Street East to, I think it's 12th Street East, taking it to 1 lane in each direction, adding bike lanes. This will also enhance the intersection at 17th Street East, which is a school crossing. The distances will be shorter, and we'll also be installing the rapid flashing beacons at that intersection as well. The third location that we have planned for a roundabout is at 15th Street West and Lancaster Boulevard. Again, the intersection is very similar to the one we just looked at, except that this one has signalized. Again, the crossing distance is very long. Pedestrians are exposed to traffic for much longer times and a lot of different directions. And this is a conceptual of what the roundabout could look like. Again, much shorter crossings, a more enhanced, pleasing-looking intersection, much slower speeds. We're really looking for that improved safety. Again, since it was a signalized intersection, the main cause of collisions was failure to stop at the signal. And so that resulted in those broadside and high impact and severe collisions. In addition to the roundabout, we'll be giving Lancaster Boulevard a road diet, and this will actually occur from 10th Street West all the way to Valley Central Way. This just shows one segment of that. We'll be adding wider bike lanes and enhanced with the green pavement at conflict points. We'll also be reintroducing on-street parking on Lancaster Boulevard to try and help reclaim that neighborhood to the people who front on that street. And the crossing at 12th Street will be enhanced significantly. So this exhibit shows what it looks like today on Lancaster Boulevard. Here's what it'll look like with the road diet and the restriping. And then here's that crossing where we're actually going to add a median refuge, as well as the rapid flashing beacons. So those are some of the upcoming projects that we have. Now I'd like to talk to you about some of the projects we've already done. And this is a couple photos from Valley Central Way and 25th Street West. On the left is Valley Central, where we removed a lane of traffic in each direction and added bike lanes and a shoulder buffer, and we also painted the bike lanes green. And on 25th Street West, we added a buffer between traffic and the bike lane and a shoulder. On Valley Central, yes.
Can I ask a question? On the Valley Central Way, why did they put the bike lane on the other side of the buffer?
Yeah, I was just getting ready to
sorry
explain
about
that.
that. Okay.
No, that's okay. That's a great question. The reason we did that is because we really had some issues at the driveways along Valley Central Way. And so we wanted to provide a shoulder, an 8-foot wide shoulder, for cars to be able to improve their line of sight, the view that they have of oncoming traffic. And we didn't want that to be right in the middle of a bike lane because, you don't want to have a bike lane have to stop because somebody's trying to edge their nose out into the street. Speeds were also slower on Valley Central Way. And so that's why we put the bike lane on that side and why the shoulder is there, again, to improve that vision from the driveways. And by doing that, we've really seen a significant improvement. So both on Valley Central Way and on 25th Street West, speeds have been reduced by 5 miles per hour. And the volumes on Valley Central Way have actually increased, where the concern of the owner of that commercial center was really concerned that, you're going to take away a lane of traffic, that's really going to impact, I'm not going to get as many cars on the street. And in fact, that's not the case. Volumes have actually increased on Valley Central Way. Now they decreased on 25th Street West, which isn't bad because that's kind of the backs of the businesses. So it wasn't a significant decrease, but, perhaps the road diet discouraged people from going down the road. I'm not sure. But the biggest impact that we've had is that mid-buck collisions, and what I mean by that are the collisions that have happened at all the driveways or at the intermediate intersections, so not including Avenue J and not including Lancaster Boulevard. They've decreased by 67% on Valley Central Way and by 50% on 25th Street West. And the driveways I mentioned that we were really trying to prove safety on, there have been no reported collisions at any of those driveways. So in the prior 3 years to implementing the road diet on Valley Central Way, we had 32 collisions. It's about 10 happening a year at the driveways and at Central Court, that intermediate intersection. And so I think this is really a significant improvement for those two streets. Of course, the Boulevard has been a great success story. On Lancaster Boulevard between 10th Street West and Sierra Highway, and these numbers actually include the intersections of Sierra Highway and 10th Street West. So this is actually really significant. Overall collisions have reduced by 50%, and injury-related collisions have reduced by 80%. Of course, we have slower speeds, only 15 miles per hour, and the street is much more pedestrian-friendly, walkable, and much safer for everyone. So that concludes my portion of the presentation, and I think at this time, Alma's going to talk to you about the current Safe Routes to School program and the status.
Thank you. That's all great news that you just gave us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Sorry, no PowerPoint. Of course, the City of Lancaster, we partnered again with Antelope Valley Partners for Health, and we received that competitive grant from the LA County, and actually that grant was funded by the Center of Disease Control. So we were really thrilled to be able to partner with them, and now we're working with the 4 school districts, including Lancaster School District, Antelope Valley Union High School District, East Side, and West Side. So we've been reaching out to them, and everyone is on board. So we think that is a huge success in our initial reach out. The grant is 4 years, and the first year was cut a little short. We only had several months that we had to deal with, but we got a lot accomplished. We reached out to the districts. Everyone's on board. We created a strong technical advisory commission. We launched a website on the city's webpage, and we participated in the National Walk to School Day, and the City Council issued October a proclamation for Walktober, so that was pretty cool. During the first term, we worked with 6 schools. Those 6 schools were El Dorado, Lincoln, Linda Verde, Miller, Paiute, and West Wind. And at those 6 schools, they all participated in their back-to-school nights. We also conducted the walk audits that Brian was talking about earlier, the education of the engineering portion. We are currently in the process of working with the encouragement and education portion with the community advisory groups. We're getting those people identified. We had our first meeting today, which was very successful at West Wind. We have also completed our pedestrian and bicycle counts at those 6 schools, and we completed teacher surveys and parent surveys, and those are all being tallied at this time. First year is already done. We're now in the second year. We've identified 10 schools to work with. We have 8 in the Lancaster School District. We have 1 in the East Side and 1 in the West Side. Our upcoming events will include walk audits at those schools. It'll also continue working with our community advisory groups. And one thing I really want to push, and I'm really excited about, is we have a Family Fun Day coming up. It's going to be part of our education and encouragement portion. It's going to be at American Heroes Park. It's going to be on Saturday, November 23rd. It's going to be from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. This event is to promote the Safe Routes programs and to have our emphasis on the bicycle and pedestrian safety, and to reach out to the parents and let the parents see a little bit more about what we're doing. Yes, we're doing these workshops in the schools, but if we have a family day at the park, they're going to get to come out, and we're going to have different activities. We're going to have a bicycle rodeo. Safe Moves is going to be presenting that for us. They're also going to have the smoothie-making blender bikes out there. They're going to have free bike repair. They're going to have free helmet fittings and adjustments. We're going to have drawings for a bicycle and helmet. Also, the CHP, the sheriff, and the fire departments will be there. We'll also have Antelope Valley Community Clinic will be there for some health screenings of simple things like blood pressure and that type of thing. And also, we're going to have sign-ups for the parents and other stakeholders that they want to volunteer and participate with some of our upcoming programs. And we're going to give a trophy to the school that has the most participants. So we want to encourage the parents, the teachers, the principals to get their kids out there, because they've got this really large trophy, and I know those kids really want that. So once again, it's going to be Saturday, November 23rd from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Alma. Wow. Lots of great stuff going on. So much progress. I had a question about the, Michelle, your presentation. You said that the 15th East and Lancaster Boulevard, the Ellen Challenger you said you had a grant for. Do you have grants for all three of the roundabouts?
Yes, actually, we do. So all through that Highway Safety Improvement Program.
Oh, wow. And
the grant is going to fund 90% of the cost of all the roundabouts.
Wow. And what is the time frame on getting this completed?
On 15th Street East, hold on just a second. We're looking at construction beginning in spring of 2015. So that one's just getting underway in design, and so hopefully by the end of 2015 we'll have a roundabout at that intersection.
For Ellen Challenger?
No, I'm sorry, that was
15th East.
15th Street East and Lancaster Boulevard. And the one at 15th Street West is going to start the same year, but more in the winter of 2015.
And what did you say for Ellen Challenger?
Ellen Challenger, construction will start next year in spring.
Great. Thank you very much for all your hard work. This is great news and great stuff for our community, and we're very fortunate to have such intelligent staff working on the grants and everything. I mean, it wouldn't be possible without you guys. So as a community, thank you for all the hard work you've done. Do we have any speaker cards? I'm guessing no? No speaker cards. Okay. Let's see. Did any other commissioners have any questions or comments for on the presentations? No? Okay. Okay, so we'll move forward to public business from the floor then. Okay, public business from the floor. This portion of the agenda allows an individual the opportunity to address the commission on any subject regarding city business. Under state legislation, no action can be taken on non-agenda items. Members of the public should be aware of this when addressing the commission regarding items not specifically referenced on the agenda. Please complete a speaker card for the recording secretary. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. Again, no speaker cards. Okay, so this meeting is adjourned to, sorry?
Madam Chair, if we may, I know on occasion we, bodies will adjourn in memory. I thought it might be a nice gesture to adjourn.
Okay. Do you want to do that? Do you want me to do it? Okay. That's a very good idea. I didn't even think of that. Thank you. So we'd like to adjourn this meeting in memory of Vice Chair Bartholet's son, Owen Bartholet, who just passed a few weeks ago. So we will do that. So we'll adjourn this meeting to Thursday, December 5th, 2013 at 5 p.m. in the Lancaster City Hall chambers. Thank you.